If you haven't subscribed to Case Decoded yet, hit that subscribe button right now and give this video a like. We are covering every development in the Nancy Guthrie investigation as it happens, and today we have significant new information that changes the picture of this case in ways that matter enormously. Day 33. That is where we are in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of NBC Today show anchor Savannah Guthrie, who was taken from her home in the Catalina Foothills of Tucson, Arizona, in the early morning hours of February 1st, 2026. 33 days since the garage door closed at 9:48 in the evening of January 31st. 33 days since the doorbell camera was disabled at 1:47 in the morning. 33 days since the pacemaker monitoring went dark at 2:28. And 33 days of an investigation that has now produced developments significant enough to fundamentally reshape how we understand where this case stands. Today we are going to break down everything that has happened in the past several days, because the developments are substantial, they are interconnected, and understanding them requires the kind of careful, systematic analysis that the evidence deserves. Let's start with the most significant forensic development of the week, because it changes the evidentiary picture in ways that are both clarifying and, in some respects, complicating. The DNA found on the glove recovered approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home has been identified. Sheriff Chris Nanos of Pima County confirmed on Wednesday that the DNA profile from that glove was traced back to a restaurant employee who works near Nancy's home. The employee, according to authorities, is unrelated to the case. This is a significant development that requires careful analysis because it cuts in multiple directions simultaneously. On one level, the identification of the glove DNA as belonging to an uninvolved individual is a clarification that removes a piece of evidence from the active investigative picture. For weeks, the glove found 2 miles from Nancy's home had been described by the FBI as appearing to match the gloves worn by the suspect in the doorbell camera footage. The DNA from that glove had been described as an unknown male profile being entered into CODIS. The identification of that profile as belonging to a restaurant worker unrelated to the case means that this particular glove and this particular DNA profile does not connect to the suspect. But here is what this development does not mean, and this is critically important to understand. It does not mean that the glove evidence has evaporated. It means that this specific glove, found at this specific location, was not worn by the suspect. The restaurant worker's glove was in that location for reasons that have nothing to do with Nancy Guthrie's abduction. What remains is the evidentiary question about the other gloves. And this is where the second key detail in this development becomes significant. Investigators have confirmed that other gloves recovered during the investigation are still being tested at a private laboratory in Florida. The existence of additional gloves under active forensic analysis means that the glove evidence thread is not closed. It has simply been redirected from one specific item to others that are currently being processed. The FBI's original statement about the glove found 2 miles from Nancy's home was careful in its language. They said the glove appeared to match the gloves worn by the suspect, a qualified statement that acknowledged visual similarity without confirming forensic connection. The DNA results have now shown that this particular glove, despite its visual similarity to those in the doorbell camera footage, was not part of the crime. That is a clarification, not a collapse of the glove evidence thread. The private laboratory in Florida testing the other recovered gloves represents the continuation of that thread. Federal investigations of this scale routinely use private forensic laboratories when the FBI's own laboratory is at capacity or when specialized testing capabilities are required. The use of a private lab in Florida for this testing does not indicate anything unusual about the investigation. It indicates the volume of forensic work being processed and the comprehensive nature of the evidence collection. Subscribe to Case Decoded and hit the like button. The forensic picture in this case is more complex than it appeared a week ago, and breaking it down carefully is exactly what we do. The development that may be the most structurally significant in terms of understanding where this investigation is headed is the confirmation that the case has been transferred to a dedicated task force comprising homicide detectives and FBI agents. Fox News reported this development, and it reflects a significant evolution in the investigative posture. When a missing persons and abduction case is handed to a task force that specifically includes homicide detectives, that organizational decision carries meaning. Homicide investigators are brought into cases when the evidence supports the conclusion that the victim may not be alive, when the investigative focus shifts from finding a living person to building a comprehensive criminal case that encompasses all possible outcomes, including the worst one. This does not mean that investigators have concluded Nancy Guthrie is dead.
It means they are now formally organized to pursue both the recovery of a living victim and the prosecution of a capital crime simultaneously.
The task force structure, combining the FBI's federal resources and investigative capabilities with the local expertise of homicide detectives who understand the Tucson area, the local criminal landscape, and the specific evidence from Nancy's home, creates a more focused and integrated investigative unit than the broad multi-agency response of the early weeks. Task forces of this nature are typically created when an investigation has generated sufficient evidence to identify specific investigative priorities, but requires sustained, focused attention over an extended period. The transition from a broad search operation to a focused task force investigation reflects the reality that 33 days in, this is no longer an emergency response. It is a sustained criminal investigation that requires the specialized skills and focused attention of a dedicated team. The simultaneous announcement that some FBI operations have been moved to Phoenix adds another layer of analytical significance. Phoenix is the location of the FBI's Phoenix field office, which has jurisdiction over Arizona. Moving operational components of the investigation to Phoenix suggests that the federal investigative work has reached a phase where it is being conducted from the FBI's established infrastructure rather than from the field command post that would have been established in Tucson in the early days of the investigation. This kind of operational centralization is consistent with an investigation that is processing large volumes of evidence, digital records, financial records, Walmart purchase data, forensic analysis results, in a structured environment with the full resources of a major field office. It does not indicate that investigators are reducing their focus on the case. It indicates that the nature of the investigative work has evolved from field operations to analytical and prosecutorial preparation. The planned return of Nancy's home to her family, expected this weekend or early next week at the time of this reporting, is another significant indicator of where the investigation stands. Crime scenes in major investigations are typically held by law enforcement for as long as forensic work requires their access. The return of the home suggests that investigators have completed their forensic processing of the property to their satisfaction. Every piece of physical evidence that can be collected has been collected. Every surface that can be tested has been tested. The home no longer contains forensic value that requires continued law enforcement control. This does not mean the investigation is winding down. It means that the evidence collection phase at the primary crime scene is complete, and the investigation has moved to the analysis and prosecution preparation phase. Make sure you have subscribed to Case Decoded and given this video a like. We are going to continue through every significant development, and the picture that emerges is one of an investigation that has evolved significantly from where it was a week ago. The neighbor's Ring camera footage showing a dozen cars passing through the area at approximately 2:30 in the morning on February 1st is a development that investigators are examining carefully. 2:30 in the morning is approximately the same time that Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker lost contact with her iPhone, the timestamp that investigators have identified as the approximate time she was taken from her home. A dozen cars passing through a residential neighborhood at 2:30 in the morning is unusual. Catalina Foothills is an upscale residential area, not a thoroughfare with heavy late-night traffic. The presence of multiple vehicles in the area at the precise time of Nancy's abduction is a significant surveillance data point that investigators are working to analyze. Each vehicle captured on that Ring camera footage represents an investigative lead. Some of those vehicles will have innocent explanations: delivery drivers, individuals returning home late, people whose presence in the area at that time is coincidental to the crime. But among that dozen vehicles, investigators are looking for the vehicle or vehicles connected to Nancy's abduction, the transportation that was used to bring the suspect to her home and to take her away from it. The Ring camera footage, combined with footage from other neighbors' cameras that has been submitted to investigators, creates a layered surveillance record of the neighborhood in the critical time frame. Cross-referencing that record, identifying vehicles that appear on multiple cameras, tracking movement patterns through the neighborhood, comparing vehicle descriptions to the Range Rover that was towed from a Culver's parking lot in mid-February, is the kind of systematic analytical work that the task force structure is specifically designed to conduct. The Sheriff's Department has asked residents within a 2-mile radius of Nancy's home to submit any footage from January 1st through February 2nd that they consider unusual or important. This broad request, covering an entire month before the disappearance, reflects investigators' interest in understanding patterns of activity in the neighborhood that may have preceded the crime. Someone conducting surveillance of Nancy's home in the days or weeks before February 1st would potentially appear on neighbors' cameras during that extended period. The 1,500 new tips received by the FBI since Savannah Guthrie increased the reward to $1 million demonstrate the direct impact of financial incentives on tip volume. 1,500 tips is a substantial number that represents both the public's awareness of the case and the motivating effect of a significant reward. Processing that volume of tips requires dedicated investigative resources. Each tip must be evaluated for credibility and relevance, the most promising ones followed up through interviews and records checks, and the information integrated into the overall investigative picture. The announcement by Savannah Guthrie that the reward can be paid in cash is a detail that reflects careful thinking about who might have information in this case. An individual who has information but fears that accepting a financial reward would create a traceable record, a bank transaction, a tax document, might be deterred from coming forward by concerns about their own financial privacy or safety. The assurance that the reward can be paid anonymously in cash removes that barrier, potentially reaching individuals who would otherwise remain silent despite having relevant information. Subscribe to Case Decoded now if you haven't already. The investigation is entering a new phase, and we will be here to cover every development as it emerges. The new ransom note received by TMZ represents a continuation of the pattern that has characterized the communications dimension of this case since the beginning, demands sent to media organizations rather than directly to the Guthrie family. TMZ described this latest communication as highly sophisticated, involving a cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin and containing graphic descriptions of consequences if the ransom is not paid. Several aspects of this development require careful analysis. First, the change in cryptocurrency from Bitcoin to a different digital currency. Bitcoin, as has been discussed in previous coverage of this case, is not fully anonymous. Its transactions are recorded on a public blockchain that can be traced by investigators with the appropriate tools. The shift to a different cryptocurrency may indicate that whoever sent this message has a more sophisticated understanding of cryptocurrency traceability and is attempting to specify a payment mechanism that is harder to trace. Whether the new demand specifies a privacy-focused currency or another alternative has not been publicly confirmed by investigators. Second, the graphic description of consequences if the ransom is not paid. This represents an escalation in the tone of the communications, a shift from demand to explicit threat. The FBI is analyzing this communication, as TMZ forwarded the message to federal authorities immediately upon receiving it. Whether the communication is genuine, sent by someone who actually has Nancy, or a sophisticated hoax designed to exploit the case's media profile, is a determination that investigators must make based on the specific content of the message, including whether it contains verifiable information that only someone with actual knowledge of Nancy's circumstances could possess. Third, the continued pattern of sending demands to media organizations rather than to the family. As has been consistent throughout this case, the communications are going to journalists and outlets rather than to the people with both the motivation and the resources to pay. This pattern remains one of the most analytically significant anomalies in the communications dimension of the case, a pattern that investigators and analysts have repeatedly noted as inconsistent with how genuine ransom operations typically function. The question of whether these communications are genuine contact from whoever has Nancy, or sophisticated hoaxes designed for media attention, is one that the FBI is actively investigating using multiple analytical tools. The California man arrested earlier in this investigation for posing as Nancy's abductor and making fraudulent demands demonstrates that not every communication received in connection with a high-profile case represents genuine contact. Cases of this public prominence inevitably attract individuals who attempt to exploit the situation for various motivations. The FBI's analytical resources include forensic linguistics, the scientific analysis of written communications to identify patterns of language, vocabulary, and structure that can help determine authorship and assess authenticity. Applied to the series of communications received in this case, forensic linguistics can help investigators assess whether different messages share an authorship profile consistent with a single source, and whether the language patterns are consistent with someone who has genuine first-hand knowledge of the crime, or someone constructing a plausible-sounding but ultimately fabricated communication. Give this video a like and subscribe to Case Decoded if you haven't already. We are continuing through the full picture of where this investigation stands on day 33, and the analysis gets more consequential from here. The debunking of social media rumors about additional doorbell camera photos is a development that reflects the information environment surrounding this case from its earliest days. High-profile missing persons investigations inevitably generate significant social media speculation, theories, alleged evidence, and interpretations that circulate widely regardless of their evidentiary basis. The Pima County Sheriff's Department's statement that claims about a new doorbell photo showing the masked suspect visiting the property on multiple days prior to February 1st are purely speculative, is an important corrective to misinformation that could distort public understanding of what the evidence actually shows. Investigators clarified that while images show the suspect in various stages of attire, there are no date or timestamps that allow anyone to conclude the individual visited the property on multiple different occasions. This is precisely the kind of misinformation that creates real investigative costs. If members of the public believe the suspect made multiple reconnaissance visits to Nancy's property before February 1st, and if that belief is based on speculation rather than verified evidence, it can generate false tips, misdirect investigative resources, and create public pressure based on a fundamentally inaccurate understanding of the evidentiary record. The sheriff's willingness to publicly correct the record, even when doing so deflates a compelling narrative, reflects the commitment to factual accuracy that is essential to maintaining public trust in a long-running investigation. The actual evidence, the 44 seconds of doorbell footage from February 1st, is compelling enough without any embellishment. Every piece of speculation that crowds the public information space around that evidence makes the investigative picture harder, not easier, to read clearly. The metal detector search of the Guthrie home by individuals who entered with family cooperation represents a specific forensic technique focused on small items that may have been dropped or left behind during the abduction. Electronic components, small hardware, jewelry, coins, or other small metal objects that standard evidence collection might have missed. Metal detectors are used in forensic investigations to locate items buried in soil, concealed under flooring, or otherwise obscured from visual inspection during initial processing. The fact that this additional search is being conducted represents the thoroughness of the evidence collection effort. Investigators are not simply accepting that the crime scene has been fully processed based on standard techniques alone. They are applying additional methods to ensure that every possible piece of physical evidence has been identified and preserved before the property is returned to the family. The return of Annie Guthrie's vehicle, which had been retained by investigators, is consistent with the overall evidence collection completion picture. When investigators are finished processing a vehicle for forensic evidence, standard procedure is to return it. The return of Annie's car, combined with the planned return of Nancy's home, suggests a systematic completion of the evidence collection phase across all properties directly connected to the Guthrie family. Subscribe to Case Decoded and give this video a like. We are bringing together the complete picture of day 33 now, and understanding where all these threads intersect is essential to following what comes next. 33 days into this investigation, the evidence picture has evolved significantly from where it stood in the first week. Let's consolidate what we know about where the investigation currently stands across every dimension. The forensic evidence picture has been partially clarified and partially redirected. The DNA from the first recovered glove has been identified as belonging to a restaurant worker unrelated to the case. A significant clarification that closes one thread but does not end the glove evidence analysis, because other recovered gloves are still being processed at a private laboratory in Florida. The unknown DNA found on Nancy's property, described earlier in the investigation as not belonging to anyone in close contact with her, remains unidentified and continues to represent a significant active investigative lead. The investigative structure has formally evolved from a broad emergency response operation to a focused task force with specific expertise in homicide investigation combined with federal resources. This evolution reflects both the passage of 33 days and the development of the investigation from active scene processing to analytical and prosecutorial preparation. The FBI's operational move to Phoenix reflects the same transition, from field command to structured federal office analysis. The surveillance picture has expanded meaningfully through neighbor camera submissions, including ring camera footage showing approximately a dozen vehicles moving through the neighborhood at the precise time Nancy's pacemaker went offline. This footage represents a new data set that investigators are working systematically to analyze, cross-referencing vehicle identifications against other evidence threads. The communications picture has become more complex with the receipt of a new ransom demand by TMZ, described as highly sophisticated, involving a different cryptocurrency than previous demands, and containing escalated threat language. The FBI is applying forensic analytical tools to assess the authenticity and significance of this communication in the context of the overall communications history of the case. The community engagement picture has been significantly enhanced by the reward increase and the assurance that it can be paid anonymously in cash, resulting in 1,500 new tips that are being actively processed by investigators assigned to that function. And the crime scene processing picture has reached a natural completion point, with the planned return of Nancy's home to her family, marking the end of active forensic collection at the primary scene. Through all of this, the DNA clarification, the task force transition, the Ring camera footage, the new ransom communication, the reward-generated tips, the crime scene completion, the central question that has driven 33 days of investigation remains unanswered. Where is Nancy Guthrie? And is she alive? The investigation is not standing still. It is evolving, focusing, and moving through phases that reflect where the evidence has taken it. The task force structure, the Phoenix operational move, the completion of crime scene processing, all reflect an investigation that has progressed from emergency response to sustained, focused prosecutorial preparation. The evidence that has been collected, DNA profiles, surveillance footage, Walmart purchase records, neighbor camera submissions, forensic analysis from Nancy's property, is being systematically analyzed by a dedicated team with the specific expertise to turn evidence into a prosecutable case. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She has limited mobility. She requires daily medication. She was taken from her home 33 days ago by someone who came prepared, with equipment, with knowledge of her property, with a plan for every contingency, including the camera system at her door. That preparation left a trail. Trails lead somewhere. And the investigators, now focused exclusively on following this particular trail, are not stopping until they find where it ends. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, any detail, any observation, any knowledge of something that seemed out of place in the Catalina Foothills area around February 1st, please contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip at tips.fbi.gov. Tips can be submitted anonymously. The reward of $1 million from the Guthrie family, $100,000 from the FBI, and $100,000 from the Tucson crime hotline, $1.2 million total, can be paid in cash to anyone whose information leads to finding Nancy. Stay subscribed to Case Decoded. Give this video a like. Share it with anyone who is following this investigation. We have covered every significant development in this case from the beginning, and we will continue covering every development as it breaks. Because Nancy Guthrie's story does not end with her disappearance. It ends with the truth being known, documented, and held accountable. Thank you for watching. We will be back with the next update as soon as it emerges. The investigative significance of the DNA clarification regarding the restaurant worker glove deserves deeper examination because it illustrates a fundamental principle of forensic investigation that is essential to understanding how evidence works in cases of this complexity. When the FBI initially announced that the glove found 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home had an unknown male DNA profile that would be entered into CODIS, that announcement was careful and qualified. They said the glove appeared to match those worn by the suspect. They did not say it was the suspect's glove. They did not say the DNA was the suspect's DNA. They said it appeared to match, and they were going to investigate. The result of that investigation, the DNA belongs to a restaurant worker unrelated to the case, is not a failure of the forensic process. It is the forensic process working exactly as it should. Investigators found a glove near the crime scene. They analyzed the DNA. They identified the DNA's source. The source turned out to be an uninvolved individual. That is a clean investigative outcome. It closes a thread that needed to be closed and redirects investigative resources toward the threads that remain open. What this process demonstrates is the importance of following every evidentiary thread to its conclusion, even when that conclusion turns out to be a dead end. Dead ends are not failures. They are the elimination of incorrect hypotheses, which is an essential part of the process of arriving at the correct one. Every false lead that is conclusively eliminated narrows the investigative field and focuses resources more precisely on the evidence that actually connects to the crime. The other gloves currently being tested at the private laboratory in Florida represent the continuation of this process. Some may yield DNA belonging to other uninvolved individuals. Others may yield no DNA at all. But the possibility remains that one of those gloves is connected to the actual suspect, that its DNA profile will either match a known individual in CODIS or provide material for investigative genealogy analysis that can identify the suspect through family relationships even without a direct database match. The investigative genealogy approach, using DNA from public genealogy databases to identify suspects through relatives who have voluntarily uploaded their genetic profiles, has been used successfully in numerous major cases over the past decade. If the DNA evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case does not produce a direct CODIS match, this represents a potentially powerful alternative pathway to identification that investigators are almost certainly considering. The task force's formal inclusion of homicide detectives is a development the Guthrie family has publicly acknowledged. Savannah's February 24th video acknowledged that Nancy may have already died while maintaining hope for a miraculous homecoming. The family's public acknowledgement of this possibility, combined with the formal inclusion of homicide investigators, reflects a shared recognition that the investigation must be prepared for all outcomes, not just the one everyone hopes for. This acknowledgement is painful. It is the kind of statement that no child should have to make about a living parent. But it is also honest, and that honesty reflects the family's commitment to working constructively with investigators who need to pursue all dimensions of this case simultaneously, including the dimensions that prepare for outcomes that no one wants to contemplate but that responsible investigation cannot ignore. The ring camera footage of a dozen vehicles at 2:30 in the morning adds a new surveillance dimension that connects directly to the pacemaker timeline. The pacemaker lost contact with Nancy's phone at 2:28. A neighbor's ring camera captured unusual vehicle activity at approximately 2:30. These two data points, one from Nancy's own medical device, one from a neighbor's private security system, occupy the same 2-minute window and together create an evidentiary frame around the moment of her abduction that is extraordinarily significant. Investigators are working to identify each of the dozen vehicles captured on that footage. Some will be rapidly eliminated as having no connection to the crime. Others may require more investigation. The possibility that the vehicle used to transport Nancy away from her home is among those captured on that ring footage. That it drove past a neighbor's camera in the minutes after her pacemaker went offline represents an investigative opportunity of potentially decisive importance. Vehicle identification through surveillance footage has become increasingly sophisticated as camera resolution has improved and as automated plate recognition technology has become more widely available. Even footage that does not clearly capture a license plate can allow investigators to identify vehicle makes and models from body shape, headlight configuration, wheel design, and other distinguishing features. A vehicle identified from the ring footage that also appears in other evidence, connected to the Range Rover investigation, to the Walmart surveillance, to any other thread, becomes a convergence point that investigators are trained to recognize and pursue. Subscribe to Case Decoded, give this video a like, share it, and contact 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov if you have any information at all. $1.2 million. Anonymous. Cash. Every piece of information matters, and the investigation is closer to its conclusion than the public record alone can reveal. Thank you for watching Case Decoded. We will be back the moment the next development breaks.